Wait.
Gang violence and self-deletions are responsible for most of the weapon interactions.
Fair enough. Let's talk about fair enough. Let's talk about gang violence. Do you think that gang violence is synonymous with black people?
Absolutely not. MS-13. Okay. So when I'm asking, a lot of different gangs. There's white gangs, there's Hells Angels.
So what I'm asking about who has more pews, it's not a false equivalency because you went to gangs, and I'm not talking about gangs. I'm asking you, who do you think has more pews? The police or the black community?
What does that have to do with anything, though?
You don't have to. It doesn't have to do anything. Can you answer the question?
So I got the numbers. So there are, in 2024, there were 1,183 police firearm exchanges, right? And 50 million police interactions.
That's not what the question I asked. The
monopoly of violence is owned by the government.
Question.
The monopoly of violence is owned by the government.
The very specific question
Deb's assertion is wrong on its face.
Who has more pews?
The monopoly of violence is owned by the government.
Does the police department have more pews, or do you think that the black community has more pews?
The monopoly of violence is owned by the government.
I don't understand why y'all won't answer that question.
I think the community has more. I think
that's a solid question.
I think the community has more. There are 40 million possible.
I don't want y'all to think of why I'm asking the question. I want you to ask them the question directly. Who has more pews? The police department? The police department, black people.
Ask to answer questions, but you don't answer.
Do y'all think that the police department has more guns, more pews, or does the black community have more pews? Which one it is?
What do you mean by black community? The 14%?
So the community that is considered black, do they have more pews than the community that is considered
the community does? So
yes.
I don't know the countrywide, but hold on, guys. So
it's a direct question.
Hold on. In Florida,
community does by far, just mathematically.
Yeah, in Florida there are 47,000 police officers, right? And I think Florida has a population of 20 something.
I'm just asking the question. I don't need you to break it down
for me.
I'm asking, are y'all saying that the police department or the black community? Which one?
The community has more. The community has more.
You think the black community has more pews than the police
I don't even think there are a million police officers.
Tell me how you got that number. Tell me how you.
I'm about to. Yeah. So in the state of Florida, in the state of Florida, there are 47,000 police officers. Right, okay. And I think Florida's population is like 21 million, right? Okay. And I think the black population of Florida, I think it's like 3 million, if I'm not somewhere near 3 million.
Okay.
Right. So out of the possible 3 million, the chances are that there are more firearm owners amongst those 3 million than the 47.
Now we're going by chances. The reason why you're saying chances is because you're saying here's the number of what the police department is, and here's the number of how many black people there are, and somehow you're saying that this number of black people have to have this number of. No. I'd rather you look that shit up because you're wrong.
I'll give you the number. There are 3. Hold on.
No. You're wrong.
There are 3.3. Can you let me speak? There are 3. Please let me speak. There are 3.3 million. Hold on, there are 3.3 million black people.
The assumption is that then you have an assumption of what number you think that black people will own firearms.
Here's the math. Here's the math. About 25% of the black population in America reports owning a firearm. Right? If there's how many black people are in Florida?
Where'd you find? Hold on. Where'd you find that?
Florida? 3.2 million.
The demographics of gun ownership.
Where did you find that number
Pew
at?
Research Center, the demographics of gun ownership.
You said 25% of black people own firearms. Is that what you said?
In a survey, so we could say 25%. How many people in Florida?
Can you tell me the survey real quick?
That's 10 million firearm owners. That's more than.
Can you tell me the survey real quick so I can look it up real quick?
Pew Research. There's 4. I think there's 4 firearms for every citizen.
What's the Pew Research? Just let me know what I got to look up.
Yeah, Pew Research, the demographic.
And I would type in what now?
I've just said it 4 times.
Okay, but I didn't hear you because other people were talking.
It's from Pew Research, and it's the demographic of gun ownership.
Okay, got you. Right on.
Yeah, and I think there's 4 firearms for every citizen in the United States, and I don't know how many officers there are in Florida. If you're doing that one state, I don't know.
47,000 officers in Florida.
what the black community is, or like that's 14% of America, right? Yeah, so like, I don't know how you calculate that, because
that's going to be half a million. That's going to be half a million firearm owners.
The state government has the monopoly on violence, like it truly does at a state level.
Yeah, the citizens have more firearms than the police. That's an absolute fact.
I would say white citizens have the most.
How is that an absolute fact?
Because 25%, he just told you 25% of the population, right, report to owning firearms. That's 40 million people, right? 25% of that is 10 million. There are 10 million firearm owners, Afro-American firearm owners in America. There are not 10 million police in America. There are less than 10 million police in all of America. Maybe there's about 1 million active police officers.
You're assuming though that a cop just has one gun, that there's one gun per, or one pew pew per cop.
Color of skin is not causation of violence. I proved that before with the maps that I brought up. So I don't understand what we're talking about here. And I specifically brought up, I think, murders, right, with and guns. It's not a causation of violence. It clearly showed that poverty is a major causation of violence, right? Those maps that I brought up.
Okay. If you think that poverty is, then that means what?
Well, that means, and then I brought up a poverty map per county of the United States, and it's all over the place, right? But it's highly concentrated within that highly concentrated black community, right, above Florida. But it's all over the place as well. There's high densities of poverty.
Why do you think there's a high density of poverty in black communities?
There's also high density of poverty in
why do you think there is a
right?
high? Okay, I understand that. Yeah. Why do you think that there's a high density of poverty in black communities?
The same reason there's a high density in other places as well.
Which is?
The federal government of the United States is one of the lowest contributors out of the G7 countries to for its lower class citizens.
That didn't answer the question I asked you. Why is there a... That didn't answer the question.
Because the men don't really like to go to work. I mean that's one of the primary.
So there's a high propensity of black and brown people in the poorer spaces, and is it because there's a high proportion of black and brown? Wait a minute. Are you saying this? Wait, let me ask you a question. Do you think? Okay, because here's the thing I find interesting. Because y'all start doing math. Y'all start doing
math. The guys aren't interested.
Hold up. Let me finish it. All right, right on. Y'all got it. All right, because y'all be saying like, oh, well, 13% of the community, of the black, do all of the crimes. All right, are you also saying that the majority of people are like lazy people in this country?
Well, they don't seek employment. They don't want to work, and they feel like work.
Right. So I'm asking you, do you think it's because they're lazy?
No, culturally, they don't feel like work is an integral part of it.
Which culture? American culture?
No, the Afro-American culture.
Oh, you think the black culture specifically doesn't want to do work?
They don't feel like work is an integral part.
Cultural differences don't equal race.
Right. So, right on. So let's say that it's a cultural difference. The cultural difference being that the black culture, or what?
This black culture, there's 3,000 different cultures.
What is it that you're saying about the black culture that they don't want to work?
There's like thousands of different cultures across the United States.
Right, I understand that there are thousands of different cultures. We're talking about the black culture. I'm asking him,
what is black culture?
I understand. He's saying specifically, are you saying that the black African American culture, black American culture, whatever you want to call it, are not interested in working hard?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I wouldn't say that. I don't.
That is what he's saying.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that.
That's what he's saying.
Collective punishment is fringe.
Yeah, but that's interesting because he said it earlier, and y'all had nothing to say about it.
I don't agree with that.
When they do surveys,
what it makes me think is
no, because
nothing about it.
Lazy people don't graduate with university degrees 4 times more than
because that's what he's implying. Right? He's implying and he's inferring that black Americans are the most lazy in this country.
No, I didn't say that.
I would say some of them are absolutely lazy, but they're lazy humans. Right?
So, here's what I'm saying. The reason that poverty persists It's the same reason why only 45% of children, right, Afro-American children, see their fathers regularly, right?
Okay.
Because the men,
because of laziness.
The men by and large, right, have an antisocial culture, and it bleeds through every single aspect of their existence, right? Okay. Their attainment for work, the ability to keep work, happiness in work, attending to their families, seeing their children.
You're saying this as a matter of fact, right? You're saying this is connected. Sure. No, I'm asking you. You're saying this is a matter of fact.
Yeah, but black isn't the causation of that. The black wouldn't be the causation.
It's not.
Do you think that it's because black? Obviously, you don't think it's because it's black, because you consider yourself black. Right. You're very much specifically talking about Black Americans. And what you are saying is the laziness that's incorporated in the Black American culture. That is what you're saying.
I'm specifically talking about hood culture. And
yes. Now you're saying hood culture.
Hood culture, yeah. It's basically hood culture because there are many, many, many people in
that culture. You're very much specifically talking about Black American culture.
No. Hood culture is a subculture of
cities based on culture.
I think he's trying to be a bitch about it. I'd rather you say exactly what you mean.
No. Sure. Right,
which culture are you talking about? What is the culture that you're speaking about?
Afro-American culture.
Right. So when you say Afro-American, which is a term that we don't use anymore, so that lets me know you're not talking about a culture that you share in. So you're talking about something that's outside of you. You seem to think that you have a better grasp on the so-called Afro-American culture than the people that are in that culture. Is that what you're saying?
I've only had 40 years of experience with them.
Right. You're not saying that you have said that you have 40 years of experience in the United States. I didn't pick that up to being that you have 40 years of experience in Black American culture. Is that what you were saying? Are you implying that you have 40 years of experience in Black American culture?
More or less, yes. Because I've always been in contact.
No, there's no more or less. Just because you live here doesn't mean that you are a part of Black American culture. And I can say that because of the things that you're saying about our culture. You are removing yourself from that culture. So you can't say in 40 years and in the same breath be like, I'm less than or not connected.
I talk to the men. I hear the men gripe about work and wanting to work. And I've worked with the men. I've hired the men. I've been hired by the men, so I understand.
I understand that you have a different perspective.
How they value work, and I'm telling you that there's a large segment. There's a large segment.
Okay, my guy, that doesn't speak to. No, that doesn't speak to the reality of all Black Americans, and the fact that you're using that, and the fact that you're using that, and the fact that you're using that and your experience as what Black American culture is speaks to how little you value how little you value us. How little you value us.
He doesn't want to listen to what I say.
She's not listening, but she's being a hypocrite because a couple of minutes ago, when either.
Sure, you got it.
She's a very disrespectful person.
I am disrespectful. You got it.
So a couple of minutes ago, she what her experience was with the buses and said,
just none of your business what her experience.
No, I said very specifically that I won't.
You're not giving me a chance.
I said very specifically, not that I can't, but that I won't. But I won't.
Let me speak to the host. I'm speaking to the host.
Got it. All right, you got it.
Yeah, right. Let me speak to the host. All right.
But don't be a bitch about it and lie about it. Be honest about what I said. No, but be honest about what I said.
Wait, Anarchy, you started out so respectful, and now you're just kind of being belligerent. Just
she doesn't give another chance to speak.
You're right. I'll be.
The only person being belligerent is Andre.
So no. Why can I not speak to the host? It's his live.
Go ahead, Andre.
You'll see how hypocritical she is, because a couple of minutes ago, when we said to you about your experience of racism, doesn't mean that because there was one experience for you that there's systematic racism. And she said, no, it's not true. There is still systematic racism. Now, when you're saying, but listen, what your experiences doesn't show that there's any. You can't say because of your experiences that it isn't. So she's a very hypocritical person, because when it comes to your statistics, you're always wrong. When it comes to her statistics, it's always right. How do you get to an agreement with these people?
Yeah, you're not making any sense. Andre, you don't experience systemic racism. That's why you're not getting it.
He does.
Maybe I live in Africa. Of course I experience racism.
He had people prejudiced against him strictly because he literally had people on this live in real time, right?
In any part of the universe,
against him because he's a white
racism ever.
But you literally,
and especially in South Africa, white people don't experience racism.
Anarchy, listen, I'm speaking to the host. He's speaking to me, right?
I don't care. You don't. Why you don't experience racism?
Hang on, I'm speaking to the host. Anarchy, you've been speaking for 4 hours. Give other people a chance.